Shri Narsinga, Jai Narsinga, Jai Jai Narsinga, Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukham Padma Bringa. You must be thinking, why we are saying this prayer? Because our guest today is someone seeing whom the first thought process which come is Narsingadev. Because he is the head pujari of Narsingadev altar, ISKCON Mayapur.
He is one of the two Pujari brothers of Mayapur, not only into deity worship, but in management board and Mayapur Academy as well. Let's welcome together His Grace Pankajanghari Prabhu.
ISKCON spiritual headquarters, or also called the Kirtan capital of the world, Sri Chandrodaya Mayapur Mandir, is synonymous for its magnanimous and magnificent deities. And when we talk about the deities, they are synonymous with their pastimes and pujaris. And out of those pujaris, when we talk about pujari brothers, of course everybody knows them in the world, who do not require any formal introduction in the Vaishnav community, someone who has been serving in Mayapur Dham for more than half a century. Today we are very, very fortunate to have with us on this Vartalaap session His Grace Pankajanghari Prabhu with us. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for giving us so much time. And this is going to be a session we will ask you not so much rhetoric questions, but certain questions probably a little offbeat, certain candid questions, but the entire aim is to get some spiritual inspiration from you, and so that every one of us can learn. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for being with us. Every one of us know that you came to India in 1970s for seeking the spiritual truth. Now, prior to that, you were born and raised in England. So we want to know more about that, like how you were as a son, how you were as a brother, as a child, as a student, and about that.
As a son, I was a good boy. A little lazy. As a student, not very good. I left school as soon as possible. I wasn't much interested in the... so then we began to live... It was a good time, relatively speaking, in the 60s when I grew up. After the 2 world wars, it was a very good time in history. A lot of... not so much pressure defending, and a lack of things. In the 60s it was more, got back in England, America before, but in England it started to become more affluent in the 60s, when there was work for everyone, and you had money and things like that. It wasn't difficult. So then the youth wanted something different from what that kind of life that had been led for a generation, practically a couple of generations. So they wanted something different, but they didn't know what. So then there was that search for something else, and naturally it became spiritual, or I don't know what the talk was, that freedom, spiritual, and naturally everyone looks to the east for spiritual. The sun rises in the east, knowledge is coming from the east. So then there was a big migration to the east, to India. So we joined that group also.
Okay. And so Prabhuji, like in 1973 or 1974, when you came for the Gaur Purnima festival here, so as I say, you have been there in Mayapur ever since, which is more than now 50 years. Seems much more like a movie that we see. In a movie we see there are characters, and then we see them going through some hardships, and then at the end there is a caption, and they lived happily ever after. And so whenever we read about you, we get to know the same instances. But my point is that when you came here, been so many years, so were there some initial level austerities? Of course there were. You can throw some light about those initial level austerities and current day challenges that you have been facing in the last 50 years.
Austerities were there for me. When I first went to Mayapur, there was no electricity. There was one pump. There was one telephone. And the number was Surupganj 31.
Okay.
The number of the telephone was 31. No 10 digits at that time. And if you wanted to make a call abroad, you had to go to Calcutta Airport. Was the best thing to do, to make a telephone call out. But there was one hut. I moved there later on in '73, and the Lotus building was the first building there. Was almost complete. It was austere. You know, we had to sleeping on the floor and taking a bath outside. But there was nothing else. That was the best there was. It's only when there's something better you think something's austere. If there's an option, a better option, then you feel, you know, this is austere. But if there's no choice or no option, then it's the best. It's the best thing. And in those days, also in the 60s, 70s, there was a great a spirit of renunciation, a spirit of surrender. So it was exciting. So then we didn't mind the austerities. Even in London, it was very austere when I joined in London, but that was quite austere.
So Prabhuji, since you said about the initial levels of austerity, which was more about fun, which was more ecstatic, and so talking about current day challenges that happen in Mayapur, so how are you, any particular current day challenges that you feel is something that you need to share, or how you have been tackling with it?
No, I don't. We don't see many challenges. All days there were challenges. I mean, we used to get attacked by bandits. That was one time, but no, it's Mayapur has always been increasing. The facilities are increasing. The devotees are increasing. The pilgrims are increasing. Challenges are now to get in the temple to see the deities at Mangal Arati. There's so many people coming. Before, it was very, very peaceful there. It was in the middle of rice paddies on the side of the Ganges. I thought, what a beautiful, peaceful place, but Prabhupada wanted a city there, so it took me some years after the first 3 or 4 buildings to realize it was always going to be something happening here. No major challenges, because it's grown quite organically from 20, 30 people in the beginning to now 3,000, and of course as it gets big, then there's challenges. You got different languages now we're talking about, so there's different classes have to be going on. Accommodation, so all around is building up. So which used to be like rice paddies is becoming quite congested. It's the same in any temple town. You'll see all around the temple is building. So, but the challenges, just the normal challenges in the material world. Material world means a challenge. Nothing's going to go smooth for very long. But not real challenges, because it's growing so organically. Then it doesn't. You don't notice things. Just changes.
You have served as a facilitator. You have been serving as a facilitator in Mayapur Academy, and we see that for a decade you were in the Administrative Council of Mayapur, and of course you have been the head pujari for the deities. So there are different roles that you have been doing, different sevas that you have been doing in all these years. So which one is that you have enjoyed serving the most?
The deity worship is the best. The others means most of the others are management, and management means resolving problems. So who wants problems? So the deity worship, you know what to do, you know when to do, and you just do it. And every day is different. Every time you go in there, it's a different experience. Because some people say isn't it boring? You're doing the same thing, same time every day, but it's never the same. It's always different. You're going to with Krishna. You're going to his room, his house. So is always different. It's like when Srila Prabhupada was here, it was always different. You didn't know what to expect at any time because Prabhupada, really wasn't of this world. So it was amazing things, and every day was like a festival. Things used to happen around it. It's like in the leader room. Obviously, it's not going to get boring. But that was otherwise the management. Now I do mostly management, hardly any deity worship.
Probably, like as you said, the deity worship every day it's a different experience, and every day it's how it happens. So, if I may ask you, the overall, is there any particular pastime that you would want to share that you relish the most, or that is something that we should really look forward to hear from you? I'm sure there must have been many. Just one probably which is at the top of your the mind, that this is something that that you always relish.
The installation when Sisi Radha Madhava came, when they were installed, when Panchatattva came, especially, that was a very, very long spiritual experience, which we never experienced before. Anyway, that for about 3 days, the Panchatattva deities, big deities, they weigh 3 tons each. To get them, it took 2 days to get them into the altar, and they were just giving out so much mercy, even before they were installed. Even when they was on the track, people were seeing the deities coming and crying, and children were there all day. Mothers were coming and putting their babies on the feet of the deities, and before they were installed, so all the different preparations we were making. But it was just. The deities were just showing themselves out. Children would stay the whole day; they wouldn't go home. Their parents had to come and bring them back for about 3 days. That was a very memorable experience, the most memorable experience of that. Deities were telling us, saying, "We're actually here. You're seeing us now. You can feel us." And very, very spectacular Abhishek. Thousands of devotees there.
And Prabhuji, for deity worship, if I may ask you that one piece of advice that you would want to give to the beginners for deity worship, and one piece of advice that you would want to give to the grhasthas and to the Brahmacharis. So if we may categorize this into 3 divisions, that one piece of advice specifically for deity worship for the beginners. Because when they hear that there is such an elaborative deity worship, and probably have a hectic work-life schedule, or because of some reasons or the others, they might or might not have deities in their homes, so just the lamination. So some devotees just want to offer the flowers. Some devotees said we can just offer the incenses or something like that. So we want to hear from you anything that one should keep it in mind for the deity worship.
Well, in the house, it's recommended, not only recommended, it's almost compulsory, according to Sanatana Goswami, who's Mahaprabhu instructed him to write about Vaishnava behavior, deity worship. They compiled Haribhakti Vilas, which is quite extensive, but it's almost compulsory for the householders to worship the deity, because that will regulate their lives and purify their lives. Srila Prabhupada gave 2 things. Cleanliness and punctuality. They're the main 2 principles. Of course, bhakti is the main principle, but he said they were the things. If it's punctual and it's clean and lots of flowers, you like. For the householder, then it's a lot different. The deities, when he comes to the house, he's known as Patit Pavan. He's very merciful, because in the temple he has a dedicated place, temple. He has dedicated servants. He wakes up at this time, he eats at this time, he takes a bath at this time, he eats this type of food at this time, and it's all around about his schedule, and he has his dedicated. Where in the home it's completely different. The deity works around your schedule. What time you get up, you wake him up. Whatever you cook, he eats that. So and it's very difficult to make an offense to the deity in the house. So he's very merciful in the house. So, but we advise that for the householders, they should make a standard, their own standard. The temple is a high standard, so they know what can be done. But what they can do in their house on a regular basis, which will not cause any difficulty for them. So we say, you make a little schedule like that, but try to maintain it. Try not to go below that. You can go above as much as you like, but try to maintain that one, because so the regulation, if you're regulated, as it's for, it will make your house, make your life peaceful if you're regulated. And it's because you have to, the man generally goes out to work and he has to be in the material world, working with so-called materialistic people. Then that will actually help regulate their lives and purify their lives. If your life is really don't have time for the deity worship, then you can worship a picture. But the main thing is, about regulation, is offering the food in the house, because you have to eat. And Krishna says, if you eat without offering to me, you eat sin. So if you really don't have time for the deity, then you can have a picture. You get exactly the same result. The deity is worshipped in 6 forms, 6 different materials, and one of them is in paint or picture. But if you have a deity, then it's expected you're going to do some more. It means you're going to clean the deity sometimes, you're going to bathe them, you're going to change their dress sometimes. So. But how often you do it, that's up to you. So you make your own schedule, which won't put you into any difficulty. And keep that. Don't go below that. So at least that minimum regulation you will have in your house. And then gradually you can increase as you want. Then for the Srila Prabhupada told us in the temple, keep it simple. And those 2 basic things, cleanliness and punctuality, and nice flowers. ISKCON is famous for the darshan, deity darshan. In fact, we brought up the standard of the whole of India practically. the dresses and the decoration and garlands, all that. For the ISKCON is very famous, and Prabhupada was very proud of that you're doing so well. One thing about the regulation, especially for younger devotees in age, is the regulation. There's no goal in daily worship. There's nothing to achieve. You're going to do the same thing tomorrow, the same thing the next day, the same thing the next day, the same thing the next day. So when we like to work for something, we like to achieve something, to see we've achieved something. So sometimes the younger devotees, they feel a little, what's the word? Anyway, they feel like not much moving. Called the mode of passion, actually. They want to achieve. So therefore, for them, then you have to give them some festival or some other response, but something coming up, and you can this is a project coming up. We have this festival this time, and then give them some little special duty, which is, because we all have that identity that we're the doers and we're the results, depending on us. That's how materialistic this ability is. Otherwise, if you're in the mode of goodness, then that means maintenance. But that's one of the tips for the pujaris that are training the new pujaris, to keep them enlivened. Because there's no end result for the deity worship. It's going to do the same thing every single day, except for festival. So festivals are the highlights and something like that. So overall, it's the best pujari is the one with the most bhakti, obviously.
So Prabhuji, for a lot of devotees who are at home, it's generally believed that if they're initiated, then they bring the Gaur Nitai deities at their home. Are there any incidences or references that Prabhupada said, or our previous acharyas had mentioned, that they can also worship the Radha Krishna deities, or something on this line?
He told one devotee, Dhananjaya Prabhu, he said you should make Krishna dolls, Gaur Nitai and others, and you can give them to the people, and they can put them on their shelf, on the mantelpiece. Hare Krishna dolls, traditional doll. He said if they become a little interested, then you can teach them how to offer their food to them. They offer some things like that. So he didn't make a big deal. But he did say that if the devotees are living with easy access to the temple, then it's not necessary to worship a deity at home. The main thing is to offer your food to in the house. In other words, he said you don't give up the temple program because you're doing your own program at home. Dynamics were different then, because that time everyone was in the temple. Now it's different. Everyone's outside the temple, living outside the temple. But that was he's saying the deity in the home is an expansion of the deity in the temple. You can see like that. So the home worship shouldn't take preference over the temple programs like that. But of course, if you're living a long way, then it's different. Yeah, we worship Mahaprabhu Gaur Nitai. Related to your other question about worshipping Radha Krishna, you have to worship Gauranga to be able to worship Radha Krishna. I mean, in other words, you can't worship Radha Krishna in Vaidhi, because when Radha's with Krishna, that means Vrindavan. So in Vrindavan, they're only worshipped in Rag, the spontaneous love. So how can you do it here? But Radha Krishna have become one as Mahaprabhu, and he's accepting our service. He's accepting any devotion or any attempt to serve him, even though we're not qualified. So we can serve him in the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. He would accept that service, so he's not different from Radha Krishna. When you worship Radha Krishna, anyway, without Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada explained, when we worship him, Radha Krishna, because we worship him as a supreme God in our own reverence, so then they accept that worship in their form of our own reverence. I mean, in other words, Lakshmi Narayan. The Baba can't reach Vrindavan, Radha Krishna, so they accept it because all the forms are coming from Radha Krishna anyway, Lakshmi Narayan, Sita Ram, etc. So they accept it in reciprocating it with our mentality. We're following, worshipping them according to the rule, not from the heart. We're doing it from the intelligence. So they're receiving that worship in an official form of Lakshmi Narayan. But when you worship Mahaprabhu, he is Radha Krishna. So Krishnadas Kaviraj says it's a waste of time to worship Radha Krishna, without Mahaprabhu. Krishnadas Kaviraj. And then he says, surprisingly, it's a waste of time to worship Mahaprabhu without worshiping Radha Krishna. Because what is Mahaprabhu saying? Worship Radha Krishna. So if you worship him, we don't follow his order, then what kind of worship are you? So you can worship Radha Krishna, but Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nanda possible should also be there. Even in a picture form, you have to go to Guru Gauranga, to Radha Krishna, unless you have spontaneous attraction.
So Prabhuji, now we're going to do a small session. That session is called that we'll be asking you a few questions, and in those few questions, we'll be asking those questions very rapidly and very quickly. And you can answer them as rapidly, probably in as less words and in as crisp as possible. So there'll be, those one worders that you can do. And shall we start that? Alright. So, what is your favorite bhajan?
Jai Radhe, Jai Krishna, Jai Vrindavan, by Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, your favorite book?
It was Navadvip Mahatmya till I read Chaitanya Bhagavat.
Okay. And your favorite deities? Probably apart from Mayapur. In Mayapur and then apart from Mayapur.
Radha Madhava apart from Mayapur, and Vrindavan, Radha, now I forgot the name. Radha Raman, sorry.
What is your favorite prasadam?
Mahaprasadam.
And any favorite pastime of Krishna that you relish the most?
The pastime where he becomes subordinate to his devotees.
Okay. And the favorite pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
In the kirtans in Pariyabhava in the house of Srivas Thakur,
and any favorite dealings that you remember of Srila Prabhupada with you?
They're all favorite. I only had to.
All right. So, thank you, Prabhuji. For all the viewers who have listened to Prabhuji's Bhagavatam sessions, they know that, apart from, of course, having a lofty spiritual experience and realizations, he's also known for his good sense of humor. So probably we'll end this conversation by asking any kind of hilarious, transcendental, hilarious pastime that happened with you, during the deity worship or something into that regard.
I can tell you a hilarious story of Prabhupada. I told this morning, I remember it. There's many mosquitoes here in this place. Many mosquitoes here.
Okay.
Right? In this area of Delhi. And Srila Prabhupada he was given a lecture, and devotees were getting bitten by mosquitoes. So they mentioned Srila Prabhupada. They said, we see that we're getting bitten, but the mosquitoes are not biting you. Is this because you're a pure devotee? Prabhupada said, yes. He said, but in Calcutta they make no such distinction. Prabhupada ki. Yeah.
So we have a question that how to practice humility and at the same point of time not appear to be weak and feeble.
Prabhupada said, a lamb at home and a lion in the chase. Humility develops with understanding, experience or philosophical understanding that, we're 1/10,000th part the tip of the hair. That's our size. And this material energy is Krishna's energy. We're placed in his material energy, and we cannot move one atom. So we don't have any practically freedom. We just have freedom of choice. In the material world, you're completely conditioned. that we don't have the ability to move an atom, we should become a little humble. So on the material side, we realize we're actually helpless because we feel we're conditioned by our senses, by desires, by all these things that we have. We feel that we are conditioned. So then we should feel helpless, to feel insignificant against the insurmountable material energies. We're trying to take shelter of Krishna, but we've been taking shelter of Maya for so long. We find that difficult. So that should give some humility, that where we realize actually we're not the controllers, Krishna's the controller. That's the material. And then on the spiritual side also, we can practice our sadhan bhajan. You can practice it as if you're really sincere and you're doing your best. You put in everything out there, and it's not enough. What do you do? So that time, that's as far as you can go with sadhana, vaidhi sadhana bhakti. At that time, when you can't do any more, then what can you do? You put in your seeker. You can't do any more, but still Krishna's not showing himself. So that time you feel then you feel helpless again. You realize, okay, I thought it was all about my endeavor. I thought I was a doer and I would get the result, but I realize now I'm dependent on Krishna. When he wants to show his mercy, then he'll do. Of course, at that time Krishna will show his mercy when you're that sincere. But at least up to you still realize you're actually insignificant. Even spiritually, you're insignificant. The 2 fingers of this month of Damodar, 2 ropes, the 2 fingers too short, signifies the endeavor of the living entity and the mercy of the Lord. So because we think we're the doers, then we work hard, and then we come to a point where we can't do anymore. We're doing our best, it's not good enough. So at that time you realize, I don't have that ability. Then you feel insignificant again. So then humility will come from that time. So materially, we're humble, and spiritually also humble. So what is there to be proud of anyway? If you understand these things, even philosophically understanding, then that will be a good step to remaining humble. But humble means you're humble with the devotees. In the material world, if you're humble, someone will tread on you. That's nature. So one policy I heard for dealings, material dealings, if someone's tough, you be tougher. If someone's sweet, be sweeter. Huh? If someone's ruthless, be more ruthless. If someone's humble, be more humble. But if someone is low class, don't become more low class. He said that way everyone will respect you. Because you some advice, someone.
So one question which is common for everyone, that how to know that Krishna is accepting our offerings or not?
We know that if we're actually following the system or the rule that is given by Krishna, the Shastras, scripture is coming from Krishna ultimately. So he gives the rule there. So if we're following the rule under the direction of the Acharya, then we can understand Krishna's accept him. Theoretically, we can understand. Otherwise, you can't. How can you say? So as long as if you're following the way the way that Krishna is prescribed to make the offering, then you can understand he's accepting.
So there are certain questions, while I'm looking back again to my mobile, is that there are questions which have been asked by a lot of devotees, and I have to refer to those questions to ask you. So although we know that Krishna is a supreme controller, but still we try to be mini controllers initially. And when things don't work out and situations slip out of our hand, then finally we turn to Krishna. How can we be dependent on Krishna at the start of the problem?
You can't. If you think of the doer, how are you going to be dependent on Krishna? If we think we're the controllers, the doers, then how are we going to be dependent? So that's the false ego is telling us you are the doer, you are the enjoyer. So the false ego is the last thing that goes, because it's the first covering of the living entity, the pure living entity. Krishna, the first thing is Krishna takes away remembrance of himself before we come into the material world. Because if you remember Krishna in the material world, no fun, right? Yeah. if you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, I am the eternal servant, then there's no fun in the material world. We can't try to be the Lord. So, then the first covering is the hankara, then intelligence, then mind, and the different elements. So until that's the last thing that goes. The false ego is the last thing that goes. But theoretically, you can understand, and then you can put into practice that understanding. You can practice being humble. It also helps. You can practice doing selfless service to Krishna. You can say to yourself, I'm doing this activity for the pleasure of Guru Krishna. I don't want anything from it. You can actually say it to yourself in a mechanical way, and you'll actually feel better if you do that. If you actually say it, you actually feel better. You can try it. But it's mechanical. But at least if you don't have it bhava, you don't have it. So you have to follow the rule and do it by intelligence.
Also, since you, Prabhuji, and your brother identical twins, so has there been, if I may ask, who, like initially when we started with the interview, we asked this about his life in England, as he's born and raised there. So if I may ask, who out of both of you was more mischievous at that point of time? And is there also any funny incident, as we were talking about, that happened because both of you look similar, and somebody misunderstood you to be Janendra Prabhuji and otherwise?
I was more mischievous. My mother was confused once. And my mother's a twin. I was also confused one time. My auntie was there. Oh. I went home and my auntie was there. And it took me a while to figure, because she lived quite a distance away. One time, I was, when I first went to Mayapur, I didn't have Brahmacharis. I was looking after the guest house. I used to clean it. So I was cleaning the floor around Srila Prabhupada's room, the balcony. And I was just coming up to the Prabhupada's room, and he stepped out. And he looked at me and he said to himself out loud, "They cannot find anyone else to do this." And I said, I'm not Janani, but Srila Prabhupada. He said, then I thought, I said, Srila Prabhupada thought I was you. Then he chastised me. Don't think your spiritual masters can make mistakes like you. It's an illusion. But that's what I thought at the time. I said, I'm not Janani, but Srila Prabhupada.
So Prabhuji, for all these years, like I mentioned, for more than half a century, has been doing deity worship, and also known for never missing a Bhagavatam class. And we also try to make such kind of practices. Probably, we make our vows that I'll try to do that for 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, and after that. So how can one be determined? How can one get that perseverance to be regular in the sadhana?
Well, the Brahmachari doesn't have anything to worry about, and he doesn't have anything to think about. Making a living, maintaining a household, families, babies, and he doesn't. So it's very simple for them. And then you have the program. In the initial days of ISKCON, it was very authoritarian. Anyone said anything, you did it. If a lot of the temple commander, the president, the sannyasis, anyone said anything, that was it, you did it. It was very strict like that. So then you had to go. You had to go to the morning program. And it's just nice. You look forward to that. You look forward to these things. It's actually freedom. If you got a choice, then you have a choice for the mind, then you're into another whole area. If you don't have that choice, then it's straightforward. And slavery is freedom, and freedom is bondage. Practitioner type of.
And for those who are outside the temple, probably they have that so-called freedom to be attending it or not attending it. So for them,
well, that's why the deity worship is almost compulsory, he says, because that would regulate their life somewhat in the house. And the other consciousness is there. This is, Krishna is not my house. I'm the caretaker of your house. Krishna, she's not my wife. She's your servant. But I have taken this responsibility to maintain and protect and guide her in Krishna consciousness. Krishna, he's not my husband. He's your bhakta. But I've taken this supportive role to maintain and keep the house nice, so when he comes home there's no problems, and he can use the time for spiritual advancement, because the wife gets the same destination as the husband merely by chastity. She doesn't study the Vedas, she doesn't go to the Gurukul, she doesn't perform sacrifices, austerities and things like that. But she gets the same destination as the husband by being changed. Krishna, they're not our kids, they're your bhaktas. But we're responsible for giving these bodies. So along with that responsibility, we have to give them all the nourishment, love, education, and the ability to go back to Godhead. We've given this body, we have to give them the ability to become free from this cycle of birth and death and go back to Krishna. And to do that, then you have to work. Then you go to work. But that's not material. Also, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that's you're working for the money to support your ashram. So that's not material. That's called Gaur Bhakti, subsidiary devotional activities. And the people you work with is not asat sangha, even if they're not devoted, because your association means revealing your mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, giving, accepting presence, giving, accepting prasadam. That's association. You save that for the devotees. With the other people, the materialists, you don't deal with them on that level. So he said that's not asat sangha. So it's not a material job. It's not asat sangha. The purpose is to get if you have a job, for a paycheck, that the result of that work is going to support your grhasthas ashram. So there's no material. So you can connect it with Krishna. Every aspect of your life you can connect with Krishna. That's the tips that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives how to perfect grihastha consciousness.
So when is that state that happens when a deity worship becomes the idol worship?
Srila Prabhupada mentioned that. He said you should always be enthusiastic. in devotional service. We're always trying to increase. He said because, he said the nature of this, physics of this world is always degrading. And the nature of the mind, he said, is like water. It will find the lowest point. So he said, if you just try to maintain, you'll gradually go down. He said, but if you always try to increase, at least you'll maintain. So that was his suggestion. He said, because if you start to decrease, you will think that this Vigraha has become Galagal, a stone around the neck. When my Guru Maharaj was here and we was a little fight, now he's gone, and he's given us his burden. With so much time, so much expense to maintain the deity. He said, when that consciousness, if that consciousness comes in, that the deity becomes a burden, he said, then that it's not a deity, then it becomes an idol. Because there's no proper consciousness, no proper affection for the deity. So that's what Prabhupada mentioned, how it will become idol worship.
So one has to constantly strive to be enthusiastic and increasing the standards, and then one can at least maintain.
Yeah, that's in every aspect.
That's in every aspect. That's in every aspect of Krishna consciousness. Okay.
Of course. Because it's not authorized, it's not parampara. People put a letter in there, it's good, won't get to the destination. But if it's an authorized post box, then it'll get to the destination. So like that, the Vigraha, the deity, actually is authorized. It's got to be authorized by scripture. And then it can be a deity emerging.
So when every day we do deity worship, we kind of become mundane, and we don't consider the deities to be Krishna himself. So how can we maintain that consciousness?
You have to have a good sadhana. You have to chant your rounds. If you're not chanting properly, or you don't read books, you're not associating with the acharyas through their writings, then there's a good chance you'll decrease. The Yuga Dharma is Nam Sankirtan, so that must be there. Deity worship is an auxiliary. I mean, it's a great part of our culture, deity worship, because of the 64 items of devotion, more than half are connected with the deity itself. So it's a great part of our culture, and Mahaprabhu and the Acharyas also showed the favorability of worship in establishing deities. But also, that has to be there, the chanting has to be there. You can't just worship the deity. It may not. You need some other enthusiasm specifically from the chanting. So you have to chant carefully, purely, and follow the principles, so that the consciousness is always alert. I mean, obviously, you're gonna some days are going to be good, and some days are going to not. Also, that's obvious. But overall, it should be. At least we should be very mindful of the and approach the deities with great respect. Well, if there's no bhava, then you have to do it with intelligence and role.
So, any words of inspiration for Navadvip Mandal Parikrama for the devotees across the world?
Yeah, come and join the Navadvip Dham Parikrama. They have 3 now. Different groups, 4, 5, 6 groups sometimes with 1,000 people in, walking around, getting covered with the dust of Mayapur. Wonderful. Every step you take in Navadvip you get a greater result than the 1,000 Ashwamedha yogis. So, because that's a material thing. Maybe grand, but it's a material thing. But one step in Navadvip is a eternal benefit.
So probably for initiated devotees, our addictions might not be intoxication, but a lot of addiction is with the smartphones that all of us have these days. So how can we deal with it?
Addictions? You have to deal
For a
with it.
smartphone primarily, like we have an addiction for a smartphone or any such so-called addictions that we might be apparently using for the service of Krishna, but then we get addicted to that particular thing as well in the process.
Well, that's what we do most of the day, right? Most of the day we're not, doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna and Guru. We're not mindful of that. We're just going through the day. But anyway, whatever it is, whatever addiction you have, whatever desires you that need addressing, then you have to address it according to the prescribed way that Krishna has given. That's religion. So you have to follow. You have to meet your desires in a religious way. Otherwise, what is not against Shastra?
At times while dealing with the devotees, we see them progressing rapidly, and we might feel envious of that. So how can we deal with this situation?
Envious. You should be happy. Someone's they're making an advancement. Get their association, touch their feet. What is the secret? Ask them. Get their blessings. Don't think negatively. Don't think negatively. It's not a competition. They're doing better than me. Everyone's doing better than me. That should be the attitude. Everyone's doing better than me.
Prabhuji, so thank you so much for your time, and we seek your blessings so that we may progress in Krishna consciousness and develop some kind of attachment with the deity worship. So, seeking for your blessings, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Help to fulfill all your pure desires, you become very enthusiastic and happily worshipping Guru, Ganga, Radha Madhav.